Very good morning, my dear aspirants. National issues. In this video, we'll be discussing 10 topics related to national issues. In our last video, also we discussed national issues topics related to current affairs 2020-21. And in today's discussion, we'll be looking into these 10 topics. EIUs Democracy Index, the Information Technology Intermediary Guidelines and Digital Media Ethics Code Rules 2021, India's long fossil of world's oldest animal discovered in Canada, Digital Intelligence Unit, Pharma exports to Arab nations, monetize and modernize, Shram Shakti Digital Data Solution, privacy and new WhatsApp policy, horizontal and vertical reservations, FSSAI slashes limit for trans fat in food that's extended deadline. So these are the 10 topics what we are going to discuss. That is FSSAI slashes limit for trans fat in food, horizontal and vertical reservations, privacy and new WhatsApp policy, Shram Shakti digital data solution, monetize and modernize, pharma export to Arab nation, digital intelligence unit, India's long fossil of world's oldest animal discovered in Viveka, the Information Technology Intermediary Guidelines and Digital Media Ethics Code Rules 2021, EIUs Democracy Index. When it comes to the first topic, that is EIUs Democracy Index, the discussion was India falls to 53rd rank in EIUs Democracy Index, which is dubbed as a flawed democracy. So the discussion, the democratic backsliding by authorities and crackdowns on civil liberties has led to a further decline in the country's ranking. India's rank higher than most of its neighboring countries. India's overall score fell from 6.9 in 2019 to 6.61 in the index. That provides a snapshot of the current state of democracy worldwide for 167 countries as such. So right from EIU, what is EIU should be there in your mind. At the same time, what the performance of India and the objectives of EIU as such. Now, when you look into EIU, Norway topped the intelligence unit, that is called EIU, and Norway topped the Economic Intelligence Unit latest Democracy Index report titled Democracy in Sickness and in Health, with Iceland, Sweden, New Zealand, and Canada making up the top 5. So when you look into EIU, the top 5 as it is Norway, Iceland, Sweden, New Zealand, and Canada. Out of 167 countries, the Democracy Index classifies 23 countries as full democracies, 52 as flawed democracies, 35 as hybrid regimes, and 57 as authoritarian regimes. India has been classified as a flawed democracy, along with the countries such as US, France, Belgium, and Brazil. So that's the discussion coming from EIU's Democracy Index. In economics times, the heading related to the same news was India falls to 53rd rank in EIU's Democracy Index, dubbed as flawed democracy. This was news. The economics time, the discussion, the first paragraph was New Delhi, India slipped to places to 53rd position in the 2020 Democracy Index global ranking according to the Economic Intelligence Unit, which said the democratic backsliding by authorities and crackdowns on civil liberties has led to further decline in the country's ranking. However, India's rank higher than most of its neighboring countries. So this was the discussion related to EIU's Democracy Index and the performance of India. The next discussion is related to the Information Technology Intermediary Guidelines and Digital Media Ethics Code Rules 2020-21. Now, what's about the rule? That is Information Technology Intermediary Guidelines and Digital Media Ethics Code 2020-21. That is, were notified on February 25, 2021. The rules have been notified under the Information Technology, that is IT Act of 2000. The Act provides for the regulation of electronic transactions and cybercrime. So the Information Technology Intermediary Guidelines and Digital Media Ethics Code Rules 2021 This act provides for the regulation of electronic transaction and cybercrime. The 2021 rules replace the Information Technology Intermediary Guidelines Rule 2011. So that's significant from UPSC preliminary point of view. That is the 2021 rule, that is the Information Technology Intermediary Guidelines and Digital Media Ethics Code Rule 2021, replace the Information Technology Intermediaries Guidelines Rule 2011. Now, about the rule required the intermediaries and digital media publishers to provide for a grievance redressal mechanism. In case of emergency, the authorized officers may examine digital media content and Secretary MIB may pass an interim direction for blocking such content. The final order for blocking content will be passed only after the approval by the interdepartmental committee as such. Now, Code of Ethics for Digital Media Publishers. The rules prescribe the code of ethics to be observed by publishers of digital media, including news and current affairs content providers and online curated content providers, also known as OTT platforms. For news and current affairs, the following existing codes will apply. Norms of journalistic content formulated by the Press Council of India, program code under the Cable Television Network Regulation Act 1995. So here it is basic fact you are supposed to understand. There is a code of ethics for digital media publishers as such. Now, right from PIB, you can see clear news that's on 25th February 2021 related to the same. And there were so many headings under this particular news, and it was Government notifies Information Technology Intermediary Guidelines and Digital Media Ethics Code Rules 2020-21. Social media platforms welcome to do business in India, but they need to follow the Constitution and laws of India. Social media platform can certainly be used for asking questions and criticize. Social media platforms have empowered ordinary users, but they need accountability against its misuse and abuse. The new rules empower ordinary user of social media, embodying a mechanism for redressal and timely resolution of their grievance. Rules about digital media and OTT focuses more on in-house and self-regulation mechanism, whereby a robust grievance and redressal mechanism have been provided while upholding journalistic and creative freedom. The proposed framework is progressive, liberal, and contemporaneous. It seeks to address people's various concerns while removing any misapprehension about curbing creative and freedom of speech and expression. The guidelines have been framed keeping in mind the difference between viewership in a theater and a television as compared to watching it on internet. So this was the basic headings came under PIB in connection with intermediary guidelines and digital media ethics code. So other than these headings, there were clear news as like I mentioned before. So here PIB as it is very clear about government notifies information technology. That is a major heading, government notifies information technology intermediary guidelines and digital media ethics code rule 2021. In that, PIB is conveying that social media platforms welcome to do business in India, but they need to follow the constitution and laws of India. And the third one is social media platform can certainly be used for asking questions and criticize. Social media platforms have empowered ordinary users, but they need accountability against its misuse and abuse. So they need accountability against its misuse and abuse. And next one is the new rules empower ordinary users of social media, embodying a mechanism for redressal and timely resolution of their grievance. Then rules about digital media and OTT focuses more on in-house and self-regulation mechanism, whereby a robust grievance redressal mechanism. So we are looking forward a robust grievance redressal mechanism has been provided while upholding journalistic and creative freedom. Then the proposed framework is progressive, liberal, and contemporaneous. It seeks to address people's varied concerns while removing any misapprehension about curbing creativity and freedom of speech and expression. The guidelines have been framed keeping in mind the difference between viewership in a theater and a television as compared to watching it on internet. So this was the major heading came under this particular news. And I'm just doing concern about lack of transparency, accountability, and right to users related to digital media. And after elaborate consultation with public and stakeholders, the Information Technology Intermediary Guidelines and Digital Media Ethics Code Rule 2021 has been framed in exercise of covers under Section 87 Clause 2 of the Information Technology Act 2000 and in supersession of the earlier Information Technology Intermediary Guidelines Rule 2011. This was a news below that headings. Now let's come to the next one. India's lone fossil of world's oldest animal discovered in Bhimbetka. And the term is important, that is Dickinsonia. So Dickinsonia, one of the world's rarest fossil, has been discovered in Madhya Pradesh. So India's lone fossil of world's oldest animal discovered in Bhimbetka. Under that you can see Dickinsonia, one of the world's rarest fossil, has been discovered in Madhya Pradesh. As per the latest report, the fossil has been discovered in Bhimbetka rock shelters, which is around 40 kilometers from the city of Bhopal. Reportedly, Dickinsonia is an extinct genus of a basal animal, which as per the records lived during the late Ediacaran period. These fossils are known only in the form of casts and imprints in sandstone beds. So referring to this discovery, researchers are of the opinion that have traced Dickinsonia on the roof of Auditorium Cave at Bhimbetka, which dates back 570 million years. The fossil was lying hidden in plain sight and was discovered by chance by two experts from Geological Survey of India when they went ahead to explore Bhimbetka ahead of the 36th International Geological Congress. So this was a news came in newspaper related to the same, that is related to Dickinsonia at Bhimbetka. You can see fossils of Dickinsonia found at Bhimbetka. That was the news. The fossils of Dickinsonia found at Bhimbetka, the Hindu newspaper. The fossils of Dickinsonia found at Bhimbetka rock shelters near Bhopal, and this was an image came in newspaper. Now you can see that discovery near Bhopal is of the earliest non-animal, about 550 million years old. In newspaper discussion, this was a major headline. Discovery near Bhopal is of the earliest non-animal, about 550 million years old. Researchers have discovered 3 fossils of the earliest non-living animal, 550 million years old Dickinsonia, on the roof of Bhimbetka rock shelters about 40 kilometers from Bhopal. One can identify the fossil from the white leaf-like patches with the central vertebra and connecting wings. While one fossil is 17 inches long, the other 2 are much smaller. The new discovery is published in a journal. Gondwana research can be seen right at the beginning of Auditorium Cave. The first of such cave at Bhimbetka, a UNESCO heritage site located about 3.5 meters above the ground. So this was the discussion. Discovery near Bhopal is of the earliest non-animal, about 550 million years old. So in detail, there were discussion related to fossils of Dickinsonia found at Bhimbetka. Next is related to Digital Intelligence Unit. The Telecom Ministry will set up an intelligence unit and a consumer protection system as a part of continuing effort to tackle the menace of pesky call, as well as to take strict action against financial frauds perpetrated using telecom resources. So what is Digital Intelligence Unit? So the Telecom Ministry will set up an intelligence unit and a consumer protection system as a part of continuing effort to tackle the menace of pesky calls, as well as to take strict action against financial frauds perpetrated using telecom resources. So that is what called the Digital Intelligence Unit. The move follows a direction from Telecom Minister, Mr. Ravi Shankar Prasad, who chaired a high-level meeting to look at ways to address rising concerns of consumers over unsolicited messages on mobile phones, repeated harassment through SMS, promising loan transaction through fraudulent ways. So this is significant concern. So Digital Intelligence Unit, it is what called DIU, and it's more into rising concerns of consumers over rising concerns of consumers over unsolicited messages on mobile phone, repeated harassment through SMS, promising loan transaction through fraudulent ways. So it's also aimed at making digital transaction more safe and secure. So the TRAI, that is the Telecom Regulation Authority of India, already has regulated in place to check pesky calls. However, several unregistered telemarketers still make calls to people, which often also lead to fraudulent incidents. The main function of DIU, that is Digital Intelligence Unit, So the main function of digital intelligence units will be to coordinate with various LES, that is law enforcement agencies, financial institutions, and telecom service providers in investigating any fraudulent activity involving telecom resources. So that is the basic work of DIU, that is to coordinate with law enforcement services or law enforcement agencies, financial institutions, and telecom service providers in investigating any fraudulent activity involving telecom resources. At the license service area level, telecom analytics for fraud management and consumer protection system will also be created. Now, this was the discussion came in newspaper related to the same DIU, government to set up digital intelligence unit to deal with telecom frauds. So that was the discussion, the Hindu newspaper. This was announced after a high-level meeting held to discuss way to make digital transaction more secure and reliable. So government to set up digital intelligence unit to deal with telecom frauds. This was announced after a high-level meeting held to discuss ways to make digital transaction more secure and reliable. Amid rising instances of financial frauds and unsolicited messages, the Telecom Ministry of Monday said it would set up a nodal agency, that is Digital Intelligence Unit, for speedy investigation and resolution of such cases. Now, this was announced after a high-level meeting chaired by Telecom Minister Mr. Ravishankar Prasad had to discuss way to make digital transaction more secure and reliable. That was the same which I mentioned before. So here, government to set up digital intelligence unit to deal with telecom frauds. That was the news came in the newspaper, and in related with DIU at the same time, what is the objectives of digital intelligence unit? You should have clarity. At the same time, the frauds in connection with telecom, there should be clarity in the mind of the students. Now, the next one is pharma exports to Arab nations. India has urged Arab countries to make it easier to export pharmaceutical products to the region and asked them to tap Indian farms to secure food supplies as it seeks to diversify the $160 billion trade basket with the Arab bloc beyond hydrocarbons. So pharma export to Arab nations and export beyond hydrocarbons. So India has urged Arab countries to make it easier to export pharmaceutical products to the region and ask them to tap Indian farms to secure food supplies as it seeks to diversify the $160 billion trade basket with the Arab bloc beyond hydrocarbons. Now, Indian pharma products enjoy great credibility around the world, but they do not have the same kind of recognition in most of the Arab world because the process through which the medicines are brought into your countries are very elaborate and cumbersome at times. So, market access to Indian pharma goods could be an early harvest idea ahead of the Indian Arab Partnership Forum scheduled in the first week of December. That was a discussion. So India Arab trade account for 20% of India's overall trade, but is still concentrated in hydrocarbons, agriculture, technology, and tourism are the potential areas for diversification. Now, this was the news came in connection with the same, that is, pharma export to Arab nations, cumbersome, says Sanjay Bhattacharya, the Hindu. So this was the discussion related to, say, the pharma export to Arab nations is a bit cumbersome. That is by Mr. Sanjay Bhattacharya. India for trade beyond hydrocarbon. This I told. India is going to have trade beyond hydrocarbon. India has urged Arab countries to make it easier to export pharmaceutical products to the region and ask them to tap Indian farms. So Indian farms to secure food supplies as it seeks to diversify $160 billion trade basket with Arab bloc beyond hydrocarbon. That was the news came in connection with pharma export to Arab nations. Next one is the term monetize and modernize. So what is monetize and modernize? Reiterating the government's commitment towards privatization of PSUs and asset monetization. The Prime Minister of India, Mr. Narendra Modi, said that the motto of his government is to monetize and modernize. So reiterating the government's commitment towards privatization of PSUs and asset monetization, Prime Minister of India, Mr. Narendra Modi, said that the motto of his government is to monetize and modernize. Addressing a webinar on the budget announcement for Department of Investment and Public Asset Management, the Prime Minister asked the private sector to come in support of the government's initiatives proposed in the budget and help it prepare the roadmap for accelerated growth. Emphasizing on the role of private sector, the Prime Minister said that the budget also focus on strong partnership between private players and the center. The fund mobilized through asset monetization and assessment will be used for public welfare measures. He added the budget has targeted monetizing 100 government assets, which would create investment opportunities worth 2.5 lakh crore. This was the discussion. Now, monetize and modernize is our motto, PM Modi on disinvestment. This was the discussion. Reiterating the government's commitment towards privatization of PSUs and asset monetization, Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Wednesday said that the motto of his government is to monetize and modernize. That was the news came in the newspaper. Next one is Shram Shakti Digital Data Solution. The Union Minister of Tribal Affairs, Sri Arjun Munda, virtually through video conference launched Shram Shakti. Shram Shakti is a national migration support portal at a program held at Panjim, Goa. So the news is the Union Minister of Tribal Affairs, Sri Arjun Munda, virtually through video conference launched Shram Shakti, a national migration support portal at a program held at Panjim, Goa. It would effectively help in the smooth formulation of state and national level program for migrant workers. So that is what called Shram Shakti is about. A tribal migration cell, a tribal museum at Goa, and Shram Shakti, a training manual for migrant workers were also inaugurated. So a tribal migration cell, a tribal museum at Goa, and Shram Shakti, a training manual for migrant workers were also inaugurated. The various data that will be recorded by Shram Shakti include demographic profile, livelihood options, skill mapping, and migration pattern. So these were the various data that will be recorded by Shram Shakti. That is our demographic profile, livelihood options, skill mapping, and migration pattern. Now, why the need for the portal? The lack of real-time data of migrants was the biggest challenge for state and national government in formulating effective strategies and policies destined for welfare of migrant workers at both source and destination states. Shram Shakti would be successfully able to address the data gap and empower migrant workers who generally migrate in search of employment and income generation. It would also help the government for linking the migrant population with existing welfare schemes under Atmanirbhar Bharat. So that is what the need of the portal is about. Now, right from PIB on 22nd January 2021, the news as it came from Ministry of Tribal Affairs. Ministry of Tribal Affairs virtually launches Shram Shakti digital data solution for migrant workers. And the same discussion you can see the Union Minister of Tribal Affairs, Sri Arjun Munda, virtually through video conference launched Shram Shakti, a national migration support portal at a program held at Panjim, Goa today. It would effectively help in smooth formulation of state and national level program for migrant workers. He also launched a tribal migration cell, a tribal museum at Goa, and Shram Shakti training manual for migrant workers. The Chief Minister of Goa, Pramod Sawan, also launched the dedicated migration cell in Goa to facilitate and support migrants who come from different states to Goa. So this was the discussion related to Shram Shakti. There should be clarity in connection with the term Shram Shakti. The next discussion is related to privacy and new WhatsApp policy. As per the new policy, WhatsApp may now share information of any of its users with a family of companies, including Facebook. This was the discussion during that particular time. Highlights of the policy: the third-party service may receive information about what you or others share with them. WhatsApp collect information from devices such as battery level, signal strength, app version, browser information, mobile network, connection information, etc. If someone only deletes a WhatsApp from their device without using an in-app delete my account feature, then that user's information will remain stored with the platform. That was another point. If someone only deletes the WhatsApp from their device without using the in-app delete my account feature, then that user's information will remain stored with the platform. So WhatsApp mentioned that it uses Facebook's global infrastructure and data centers, including those in the United States, to store user data. So the new WhatsApp policy contradicts the recommendation of the Sri Krishna Committee report, which forms the basis of the Data Protection Bill 2019. So from this perspective, two discussion as it is coming, that is one is Sri Krishna Committee report At the same time, Data Protection Bill 2009. And data localization, the term is also important right now. So the new WhatsApp policy contradicts the recommendation of the Sri Krishna Committee report, which forms the basis of the Data Protection Bill 2019. The principle of data localization will be compromised because of this particular point. Now, WhatsApp new policy, privacy bogey, that is financial express discussion. WhatsApp new privacy policy has left many unearned as data privacy has become a significant cause of concern. That was the discussion came related to the same in the newspaper. Now, horizontal and vertical reservation. The Supreme Court in Saurav Yadav versus State of UP, Uttar Pradesh case has clarified the position of law on the interplay of vertical and horizontal reservation. The case was on issue arising from the way of different classes of reservation were to be applied in the selection process to fill post of constables in the state. So the term horizontal and vertical reservation should be there in your mind. So what are the vertical and horizontal reservation? Reservation of the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes and other backward classes is referred as vertical reservation. It applies separately for each of the groups specified under the law. So reservation for scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, and other backward classes is referred as vertical reservation. It applies separately for each of the groups specified under the law. Horizontal reservation refers to the equal opportunity provided to other categories of beneficiaries, such as women, veterans, transgender community, and individuals with disabilities cutting through the vertical categories. So what is horizontal reservation? Horizontal reservation refers to the equal opportunity provided to other categories of beneficiaries. Other categories of beneficiaries such as women, veterans, the transgender community, the individuals with disabilities cutting through the vertical category. So the interlocking of the two types of reservation throws up a host of questions on how certain groups are to be identified. The court decision, the court ruled against Uttar Pradesh government holding that if a person belonging to an intersection of vertical horizontal reserved category had secured scores high enough to qualify without the vertical reservation, the person would be counted as qualifying without the vertical reservation and cannot be excluded from the horizontal quota in the general category. So that was a word, that's the court decision. The court ruled against the Uttar Pradesh government holding that if a person belonging to an intersection of vertical horizontal reserved category had secured scores high enough to qualify without the vertical reservation, the person would be counted as qualifying without the vertical reservation and cannot be excluded from the horizontal quota in the general category. So this was the news, how horizontal vertical quotas work, what Supreme Court said, the Indian Express. So this was the discussion. I told what is vertical and what is horizontal and what Supreme Court mentioned. The interlocking of the two types of reservation throws up a host of questions and on how certain groups are to be identified. For example, would an SC woman be put in the category of women or SC? This was the discussion, and Supreme Court of India gave absolute clarity what to be done in connection with horizontal and vertical reservations. Now, FSSAI slashes limit for trans fat in food. That was the final discussion. The Food Safety and Standard Authority of India has extended the deadline for the enforcement of its recent Gazette notification, which caps the amount of trans fat or trans fatty acid TFA in oils and fats to 3% from the current permissible limit of 5% from January 2021 to April 2020. So here the Food Safety and Standard Authority of India has extended the deadline for the enforcement of its recent Gazette notification, which caps the amount of trans fatty acid in oils and fats to 3% from the current permissible limit of 5% from January 2021 to April 2020. The deadline to reduce trans fatty acid to 2%, however, remains the same, January 1, 2020. So this was the discussion. So the revised regulation applies to edible refined oils, vanaspati, particularly hydrogenated oils, margarine, bakery shortenings, and other medium of cooking such as vegetable fat spreads and mixed fat spreads. So the step to reduce trans fat came after the World Health Organization's call for global elimination of trans fat by 2020. So that's also the in your mind, that is the step to reduce trans fat came after the World Health Organization call for the global elimination of trans fat by 2020. Now, As per the World Health Organization, approximately 5.4 lakh deaths take place each year globally because of intake of trans fatty acids. So that is the significance or the relevance of the discussion. So that is FSSAI slashes limit for trans fat in food extended deadline. So what is trans fat and what's the word from the side of WHO and what all are the significant issues related to C. So here the Food Safety and Standard Authority of India has capped the amount of trans fatty acids in oils and fats to 3% for 2021 and 2% by 2022 from the current permissible limit of 5% to an amendment to the Food Safety and Standard Prohibition and Restriction on Sales Regulation. That's the news. So that's about the new discussion related to FSSAI slashes limit for trans fat in food. So we discussed 10 topics right from current affairs. So don't miss the earlier 10 topics and keep watching the rest 10 topics too. And national issues we'll be discussing in the same manner and we'll meet in the next video. Have a great time. Have a very peaceful study. Calm version is the most productive version. Keep going. Thank you.